You're watching Breakfast Television on City TV. When will the provincial election be called in Alberta? Monday, Tuesday, 3 weeks from now? For some insight, we turn to Laurie Williams. Laurie, of course, is a political scientist, a professor, policy studies professor out of Mount Royal University. Laurie, thank you for coming in. And right off the get-go, do you have any idea when this election is going to be called?
Well, it's a little difficult to know. A couple of days ago, I was pretty sure it'd be throne speech, election call, probably April 16th for the election. But now we're hearing this news about new legislation to preserve public health care. And that being the case makes me think, well, maybe they're going to actually introduce some legislation. So throne speech, at least introduce, maybe even pass some bills, and then call the election. I still think it's going to be in April. I think there are a number of reasons within the election period why April works best for the government. But it's becoming a little less predictable now, exactly what's going to happen.
Okay. To get back to the legislation you're talking about, the healthcare reform legislation, which is the only one that's been talked about right now, do you think it's a ruse, or do you think it's a legitimate piece of law that's going to be developed?
I wouldn't say a ruse. I think it might be one of two things. They're actually going to introduce the bill and then call the election, maybe introduce past the bill and call the election. That's a possibility. I think it's going to be more or less a statement of their vision, of their intention. It's one of the things they want to run on. We're going to preserve public health care. So I think the throne speech will focus on, it'll be a little bit of, these are the things we've accomplished. These are the things we've invested in, diversified the economy, invested in green energy. We heard there's a new homeless shelter opening in Red Deer, etc. Those are the kinds of things they're going to talk about in the throne speech, and that will be probably a bigger sense of their vision for the future, what the platform they want to run on, if you like. And then sometime relatively shortly after that, I think we're going to see the election call.
Okay, who benefits, in your opinion, if we delay the election?
It's hard I mean, there's so many variables in play, but the reason I think that it might make more sense to go, I mean, we're talking about somewhere between now and the end of May.
Yes.
April probably has a little bit of advantage just in terms of where the base for the NDP is. Those students that are rural students, let's say, that are at school in urban centers can make a bigger difference in those urban centers than they can in rural settings. So that might be one of the things that they're thinking about, because of course they're very popular, or more popular, I would say, amongst young people. I mean, we have candidates, former students and current students at my university that are running in the election. A lot of them are interested in voting in the election, so that could be a factor that they're considering as well. On the other hand, given some of the news that we're hearing lately about investigations, it might play well to give a little bit of time for those investigations to play out, see what the results are, and that actually might benefit the government as well. But again, we have no way of predicting when those investigations will yield anything like results. So they've got to calculate a number of different variables.
Speaking of calculating, how is the rumor regarding Brian Jean possibly making a political comeback? Does that point to a possible break in the unitedness, so to speak, in the conservative movement?
We've seen a lot of things being said by Brian Jean that indicate he's not happy about the merger or the leadership or some of the things that are happening. If it were him alone, I think I wouldn't be saying that's significant. What's more significant is the number of former Wild Rosers who are criticizing the style of leadership.
Yes.
It's top-down, it's not grassroots, it's not listening to the constituents. And we've seen a number of former MLAs leave and criticize the party. We saw the Livingston McLeod board resign last week. So it looks like a little bit more is bubbling up. And now with this speculation that there's been some kind of strategy afoot for Jeff Callaway to basically pretend to run as a candidate for the leadership, only to attack Brian Jean and increase Jason Kenney's chances. This is sort of adding to the frustration of former Wild Rosers. So the combination of things like insufficient fiscal discipline, maybe not taking as strong a stand on social issues, and this shift in leadership, the very thing that led to the creation of the Wild Rose and its predecessors in the first place, people that aren't as concerned about winning as elections, more about principle, more about their idea of democracy and governance, those folks are gonna say, look, I'm not sure I want to be part of this UCP party. It looks like PC 2.0. I think we want to go with Brian Jean the way he was going before. And so if Brian Jean did, I mean, it's very late in the game.
Yeah.
But if Brian Jean did become the leader of the Freedom Conservative Party, I can see either some former Wild Rosers running or voting for, and possibly that split in the vote that we saw in the 2015 election could reemerge. But again, it's so late in the game to get candidates out. I'm not sure at this stage of the game it's going to have that big an impact.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, the speech from the throne is this Monday at the legislature out of Edmonton. Lori Williams, political scientist of Mount Royal, thank you for coming, and always appreciate your insight as to what's happening politically in our province of Alberta.